Hi, insert Make My Monster Grow joke here. Andrew, and this is Katie's Toys. On today's MIA 80s Ladies, we're finally going to dip back into the 90s, but this time at long last, really hitting one of the heavies of the 90s. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is a property that I was actively not a fan of at the time, but I've really sort of grown to respect much more, in recent years. So, let's just get right into Power Rangers, Rita Repulsa, and Scorpina. The history of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is vast, even before it reached American shores. Essentially, Haim Saban went, looking over at Japanese shows and did what many others had done, in the 80s, such as, say, Voltron or Robotech, and that being taking an existing show over there and localizing it. That meaning that, they would sort of redub it, retextualize it for a North American audience. What Saban did for Power Rangers is a little more involved, however. He ended up taking a Japanese series called Super Sentai, and in fact the 16th series of the show, and transferring that over to American audiences, now known as Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. He kept, the special effects, the monsters, any, footage that involved the, Power Rangers in their suits. However, he did film all new content with new American actors who were wildly underpaid. The show, there's a lot going on. When I first saw it, I sort of assumed it was very Voltron-esque, but there's apparently, a lot more to all the different transformations, weapon configurations, it's a lot of a lot. And I often complain about things being too complicated, and I think this is sort of one of those things where it is. Essentially, the premise of the show is that, two space wizards had their final battle and trapped each other in, different forms. Zordon was banished off to some time-space vortex, while Rita Repulsa was essentially just dumped into a space dumpster. Some astronauts on the moon had sort of, freed her inadvertently, and she decided to, just conquer the first planet she saw. And she saw Earth from the moon, and she and her cohort set up base there to launch an attack on Earth, but really specifically a little town called Angel Grove. In response, Zordon, speaking through a tube essentially and using his, robot Alpha 5 as a proxy, set out to look for, 5 teenagers with attitude who could inhabit not only these, multicolored Power Ranger suits, but also take their weapons, take their dinosaur-themed Zords. Those Zords could transform into a bigger Megazord. Those weapons could transform into a bigger weapon that all would, be used to defeat Rita's forces. Each episode was very much a Monster of the Week sort of formula, not unlike, say, Sailor Moon around the same time. Essentially, Rita would send her army of putties down to conquer Angel Grove and or a monster. This monster would be easily defeated by, mild gymnastics by the Power Rangers themselves, who would, again, form their bigger weapon, blast the monster. Rita would throw down her wand, which is essentially just a big staff, and say, "Make my monster grow," and that monster would grow to Godzilla size. And then they would have to form, all their Zords into the Megazord and do one big slash. And just rinse, repeat. This was very formulaic, but a bit successful. The show officially launched in August of 1993 and was accompanied by, a huge assortment of toys, be it the characters, the Zords, the weapons, roleplay, all of it. It was seemingly just an overnight smash success, and at the time, I was too old to be playing with Ninja Turtles, so I was certainly, out-aged of Power Rangers. I did appreciate that the figures were very articulated, much more than we had seen prior to that point in North America. However, I was very much, and still very much am, a cartoon person, so I saw this sort of live-action shift as an assault on the Saturday morning cartoon. And likewise, because, this was a property that reshaped the culture around it, there was a lot of, let's say, spin-offs or rip-offs of Power Rangers, so live action dominated going forward. Nevertheless, I'd say this goes especially for Gen X, but, we don't really give it the respect I don't think it's really owed. When we talk about franchises like Star Wars, like He-Man, like Ninja Turtles, that did sort of drop and were immediate successes, and the entire industry of toys, merchandise, TV, all wrapped around, to fit them. Power Rangers is very much that, and we don't really include them in the same conversation as those other big threes, but it absolutely belongs there. As for the MIA 80s ladies in questions, there are two this round. Rita, of course, being a big one. She was, really the big bad of the series, at least in season 1. By season 2, she had been sort of demoted by Lord Zed and sort of, pushed off to the side. That said, she would make a big return as season 2 went forward. She would use a love potion to seduce Lord Zed, and eventually they didn't even need the love potion, and they got married in a very baffling episode. Also, during the reception, they had a Jewish folk song playing, so L'chaim. There were many, many monsters of the week. I'd say, Madame Woe is definitely another character who would be worthy of a figure just based off of design alone. However, it was really Scorpina who showed up, midway through season 1 and didn't have a lot of appearance, maybe 4 to 5 episodes. But certainly made a big impact and was very much, sort of in that roster of recurring villains who would, challenge the Power Rangers. She was, outrageously arrogant, outrageously, cruel and evil, and also the first of these, kind of villains to have a very different monster form from her original form. While Kimberly and Trini got, the royal treatment, and justifiably so, within the Power Rangers toy lines, Rita Repulsa particularly, but also Scorpina, kind of were left out for the most part. They were planned for Evil Villains Wave in 1994, and were even shown in some Toy Fair catalogs, but neither actually made it to stores. In this case, Rita Repulsa looks fantastic, and it's really unfortunate that she never made it into the line. These two would have been 5-inch, and Scorpina was, I think also appropriately in her monster form, which is more, toyetic, if you will. I haven't been able to lock down precisely why they weren't made. There were, a number of other villains, particularly Goldar, who were made quite often for all the different scales of the Power Rangers toys. There's been a lot of speculation that they were not necessarily, held back because girl figures don't sell, but rather the, villains weren't really the feature. Power Rangers then, as now, really kind of focuses on the 5, 6 Rangers themselves, and villains are kind of an afterthought. Since then, Power Rangers has never really stopped. It's got that kind of Transformers-esque kind of vibe where, the line, whether you realize it or not, just continues and continues to sell toys. It's still, space on TV. Like, it's been this, never-ending hungry beast. Rita would go on to have sort of more minimal roles throughout the years, but would always be a large presence, and in fact would be sort of the main villain of the Power Rangers movies, with Elizabeth Banks in the starring role. Scorpina fared a little less better than Rita, however. The actress who played Scorpina in season 1 wasn't available for season 2, and so the character essentially just gotten written out. Since then, she's certainly a fan favorite, but she's not really appeared in any, actual TV shows. Certainly ancillary media, but she's, more of a cult classic than a real, steadfast villain all these years. For toys, it took them a good long while to finally see plastic form. Rita herself would not see an action figure until 2010 with an Evil Space Aliens line of figures that were 4-inch. She was just awful. Just an ugly figure. People were happy to get her, but, not really happy with the final result. Nevertheless, they would both get, much better representation in more recent years. In 2020, during the Hasbro Lightning Collection, Rita Repulsa got a few releases, as did, Scorpina. They would both appear in Super 7's Reaction line, and in Super 7's Ultimates line, Rita Repulsa would again get 2 more releases. This is sort of, really sort of, I think, giving respect where it's due. These two villains were, just right there at the beginning, huge influences on many elder millennials' childhood, and it's great to actually see them finally get their day in the sunshine. Because Power Rangers keep on going. They are not stopping anytime soon. Hasbro is, let's just say, not really in the business of doing action figures much anymore. So as of Toy Fair 2025, which time of recording just wrapped, Playmates will now be doing a line of Power Rangers toys. Again, focusing very much on Season 1, Season 2. with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. At New York Toy Fair in March of 2025, they did show Rita Repulsa, and I mean the figures, a bit of a mixed reception on them. It's very Playmates, but nevertheless, it's great to see someone take the reins and be passionate about the whole franchise. So it's great to see Rita there. I would not be surprised to see Scorpina at some point in the near future. And that's about all I got for Power Rangers. There's many seasons later. There's many characters that I could probably talk about, but I mean that's really getting into more of the 2000s, and that's the 90s is far enough. I'm willing to go. So thank you for watching. Thank you for liking, subscribing, sharing, all those YouTube things, and I will see you next time on MIA 80s Ladies.